He's an ophthalmologist, a retinal surgeon, a husband and a father, and an author. Dr. Andrew Lamb has penned a new book called Repentance, a fictional account which explores the personal stories and sacrifices of those of the 442 Regimental Combat Team during World War II, a segregated unit of Japanese American soldiers. Dr. Lamb joined me in studio to discuss his book and why he chose the topic.
The book is historically based on an incredible group of American heroes called the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. These were Japanese American men who'd basically volunteered and fought heroically in Europe during World War II, when many of them had family literally incarcerated in internment camps like Manzanar at home. And so it's historical fiction, and the story is based on a Japanese American war hero who has a really big secret. A secret so bad that he refuses to speak of the war or how he got his medal. And it's kind of a dual timeline story in which there's scenes from World War II interspersed with scenes from the late 90s when we meet this war hero's son, who's actually like this world-famous cardiac surgeon, but he's had an estranged relationship with his father. They haven't spoken for decades. But then the government comes calling. He gets very perplexed because the government's starting to ask a lot of questions about how his father got his medal, the circumstances around it, because something really bad happened in France. And it doesn't seem like they're really willing to stop looking into it until they find out exactly who did what. And it gets the son interested, and he embarks on this journey of discovery. It takes him to California, to the battlefields in France. And he begins to learn secret after secret about his father, about his parents, and his own life that have kind of earth-shattering consequences. So I don't want to give away any spoilers, obviously, right, but it's essentially like this dramatic Japanese-American World War II family drama that's very closely entwined with the history of the 442nd.
And tell us a little bit more about that history, because I know you include some in the book, but this was a highly decorated unit.
In fact, the most decorated unit in U.S. military history, believe it or not. You know, these were volunteers from Hawaii and the internment camps, and they wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt during World War II that they were loyal Americans. I mean, you think about it, if you were locked up in an internment camp, how likely would you be to volunteer to fight and die for a country that had literally taken away all your rights and everything you had? But believe it or not, a lot of them did. And they won 21 Medals of Honor, 52 Distinguished Service Crosses, 560 Silver Stars. Wow. Of the 14,000 guys who ultimately served in the 442nd, they won 9,486 Purple Hearts. So that's a strong record of sacrificial fighting. And they did it because they just wanted to prove themselves, you know?
And this is a part of World War II history that we don't often hear about.
That's right. That was one of my goals. You know, I think as a writer, I like to find aspects of American history that aren't that well known but really deserve to be.
And so in writing this book, I know that was one of your points, but you're a busy father. You have 4 children, husband, and you're a doctor, and you're a surgeon.
Yeah.
How is it that you have carved out, this almost second career, writing this book and really going into history? What motivated you to start doing this?
I think a lot of people ask me about this, and to be honest, I think that we all have passions, and if you are passionate about something, you just make time for it. I'm passionate about American history and military history. It's what I studied in college, essentially, before I went to medical school. So when you get an idea, you just grow with it, essentially. I find myself writing when I'm waiting for my kids' sports practices, after I put them to bed, things like that. So you just make time.
It's just a passion.
Yeah.
So in this book in particular, you talk a little bit about, some, family history and how complicated relationships can be, especially when you're talking about combat, and especially when you're looking at, older veterans, World War II. How important was it for you to get these details right about those relationships?
Yeah, very critically important to me. I mean, as someone who studied history, got a degree in history, that is actually the biggest thrill for me when I can incorporate the true history in books like this. And I should mention there was one very well-known 442nd veteran named Dr. Susumu Ito, who is helpful to me. He was a guy who, he won the Bronze Star. He was training to be an auto mechanic before the war, but after the war he went to college on the GI Bill, ended up being a professor at Harvard Med School. And it was very wonderful to meet him. He read the book, liked it, endorsed it, felt the combat scenes were very, very true to what actually happened, particularly in France, where they were fighting in the Vosges Mountains, which was one of the most difficult areas to be fighting in. essentially, during the war.
And you talked a little bit about as well, these men wanting to prove themselves, which is heartbreaking knowing that they're American citizens.
That's
That we were all in this together. How has that sort of narrative played out in your own life as you've looked back at what people went through? How important is it to get that message out maybe to young people who don't understand?
Well, it's a great question. A lot of people have asked me in interviews like this, being Chinese American myself, did that have any relationship to this Japanese American story? In a sense, it did. I mean, I know what it's like to be Asian American, what it's like to be a minority in the United States. It's not very hard for me to imagine what it might have been like to be in these boys' situation. For example, what if we went to war with China? If that happened, I would suddenly feel like a bright spotlight had been shined on myself, my family. I'd wonder if all the friends I'd made in my work, in my town, would suddenly view me with suspicion. And you can bet I'd do anything I possibly could to prove I was a good and loyal American. I'm a third generation American, but how much would that count for if we went to war with China? So it's easy for me to appreciate what kind of sacrifice these guys made. It's extraordinary.
And while it's obviously, decades later and things are different, things are very much the same. I think you bring up a very, interesting point that, people, no matter what, still have, different views. So if there was something like that, how do you think this kind of shapes the conversation as we talk to future generations about how, we treat each other as Americans?
Well, as somebody who loves history, I agree. I mean, I think that it's really important that we remember this history. Obviously, we're doomed to repeat it if we don't. And I hope my book, in some small way at least, helps us all become empathetic and appreciate what times can be like today and in the past for different people who are different and minority groups, et cetera.
So in the book, obviously, a big part of this was the internment camps because many of those men had come from
That's right.
that situation. If you can help,
Absolutely.
bring us up to date on that.
Yeah, this story of the 442nd is closely entwined with the American tragedy of Japanese American internment. That was a situation in which, based on race hysteria, obviously Imperial Japan was our enemy. In the West Coast, about 120,000 Japanese Americans were taken and incarcerated, and 2/3 of them were American citizens, and half were children, okay? And it's very clear that this really wasn't based on any military risk from this population. Not during the entire war, there was not one instance of Japanese American sabotage or espionage. And America has definitely acknowledged that this is a mistake. At the bicentennial celebration in 1976, President Carter called it a national mistake. During the Reagan era, there was a Civil Liberties Act that basically gave reparations to families that had been interned. But it was a very tragic moment. Families lost everything. They were given less than a week's notice to basically leave everything they had. If they tried to sell things to predatory buyers at pennies on the dollar, it was a tragic time. And it affected families adversely for generations.